Welcome, everybody. I just put the attendance link in the chat box, and I'll put it up a few more times as we go through the session. If you've already done it, don't worry about it. If you have not done it, go ahead and click it and then mark what sessions you're attending today, and you are good for the whole day. Hit admit again. This is component 3, teaching, practice, and learning environment with Brad Lett. I'll be presenting it. I'm Tina Benson, one of your Alabama Network NBC ambassadors. It's late. I'm tired. I can't think of my words. But we are so glad that you're here to join us this Friday afternoon. And I'll be helping to facilitate and monitor the chat box. If you have any questions, just throw them in the chat box, or I'm sure Brad will give you some time to, for some questions through it. And we will help you kind of get ready for component 3. So,
Hi guys, my name is Brad Lett. I usually do this presentation with my wife. She is actually in the Alabama NBC Network Board of Directors, their board meeting today. So I will be doing this one today by myself. So let me go ahead and I will share my screen with you guys so you can see our presentation. And I'll can everyone see my screen? Good. All right, and I will apologize. I am a little under the weather today. I may have to take a sip of my drink from time to time, but we'll get through it. All right, so like I said, my name is Brad Lett. I am certified in career and technical education. I went through certification the year after my wife did. She got certified in 2018. I was certified in 2019. And, I teach at Guntersville High School. Down there's my information. So if you need to follow me on Twitter, or if you need to ask a question, or there's my email address. So if there's something that we don't get to, we don't cover, anything like that, feel free to shoot me any questions. Also, my wife, I will admit it, probably knows a little bit more than I do. So there's all of her information that is there as well, if you would like to, contact her as well. So today we're going to be talking about component 3, teaching, practice, and learning environment. As people are coming in here through this first part, we're going to be constantly trying to, admit them in. And so just kind of be patient with us through that. So let's just take a little quick poll. Those of you, you can drop it in the chat box or whatnot. How many of you are elementary school teachers? How many of you are secondary teachers? We do have some people that go from administration kind of back and do the national board certification. That's a C. Coach, if you're a coach or a specialist, that's a D. ESL teacher, E, and F would be special ed. We'll try to take a little look at those right there. Okay, so I see a lot of B's, a lot of A's. We've got a coach or a specialist in here. It's always nice to see that. Good deal. All right. So component 3, this is kind of one of the things that we always talk about when it comes to component 3. It is worth 30% of your overall total score. So of the portfolio components, I don't want to say it's the most important one, but it is the one that is scored the most heavily weighted. The other two, component 2 and component 4 put together add up to how much you get kind of for component 3. One of the things that, Steph and I, we always talk about is there are different ways to kind of complete the National Board certification process. You may choose to do it like we both did. We both completed it in 1 year. We have, between the two of us, 5 total kids. I coach 2 varsity sports. And so we were able to do it in a year. It is extremely doable for you to be able to do it in a year. If you hit the ground with your feet running in August, you should be able to complete it. Now, for when if you're trying to break this up and do it over a certain period of time, Steph and I, we always kind of suggest that you do components 1 and 3 first, because that's 70% of your score. Your test and component 3, that is, that's going to be worth 70% of your total score. The reason why I like taking the test the first time is because some of you may not know this. You can actually go back and just retake the selected response or any one of the constructed response items. So let's say that you don't do so well, maybe like on, constructed response item number 2, you can pay less money and go back in and do just that one constructed response item. That, and you kind of see right off the bat, hey, this is 70% of my score. Now I can go to there. If you will Google the NBCT calculator, it has all of the weights in there for it. So you can kind of start guessing, okay, I need this on component 2 and 4, and I should be able to pass. Those are some things that we tend to look at with our candidates, that we sit down with them, and the ones that we mentor, that we look at this with them. We are facilitators for the NBCT Regional In-Service Center, the Region 3, the UAH, Alabama A&M. We handle kind of the majority of their NBCT support. I'm sorry, we still have people coming in. So from time to time, I'm clicking the admit button here. So it's extremely important for you to kind of get involved with your regional in-service center. They can kind of help go through this portion with you guys. So you'll know, hey, do I retake this? Do I not? When it comes to all of your scoring. So one of the first things that I always do is I kind of show you how to find your standards and how to find your instructions, because, some people may not know how to do that yet. I got a feeling that maybe all 38 people in here already know how to do it because of where we are at today. But I'm actually going to go ahead and do it anyway and kind of show you guys how to get to it, just in case there's that one person in here that doesn't know how to do it. So if you go to mbpts.org, and you hover over certification, you will scroll down until you see Candidate Center, and you will click on that. Now, I will say that they update this website constantly. So I may only be showing you how to get to it for this month, but at least I'll be able to kind of show you where to go. So under Candidate Center, they have all kinds of really good information about the important dates and deadlines, but you're going to go right here to first time and returning candidate resources and click learn more. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about this throughout the presentation, but this is also where you're going to find just some general portfolio instructions. This is where you're going to find different kinds of forms, especially the release form. I'm going to go ahead and make the suggestion that you send home student release forms the first day of school. Go ahead and combine that and compile that with all the other forms that you send home to be signed. The reason why is you will need a signed release form for any student that is in a video, that is either seen or heard in a video. And you will also have to do the same thing for an adult if for some reason there were to be an adult in your classroom. But also for any student work samples that are used as well. Go ahead and send those home. You do not have to turn those into national boards, but just in case they ever were to come back and audit you and say, did you do this? Did you not do it? We need to make sure that we have those signed release forms. But as we scroll down here, you will come across two boxes. One says discipline, one says developmental level. If I click on discipline right here, I can select what I certified in, which was career and technical education. And then my developmental level would be ages 11 through 18 plus. Now, there is only one developmental level, but if I go to English language arts, I will notice that there are two age levels here. We'll let Jeremy Robinson in. All right, so the kicker with this is 51% of your students must fall between those age ranges. If 51% of your students do not fall between those age ranges, you will get a no score. All right. If you notice here, you got your component 1, complete instructions. That is a standalone document. And then you have your standards here, which your standards are extremely important. You know, everything that we do kind of ties back into our standards. So you need to kind of know your standards backwards and forwards. That is also a standalone document. But components 2, 3, and 4, those are zip files. When you click on it, not only will it have your instructions in there, but it will have every form that you need to fill out to turn in with your national board stuff. All right, do we have any questions thus far? I am extremely informal when it comes to these meetings. Please do not feel like you have to drop something in the chat box. Don't feel like you have to sit there muted, whatever. Unmute, and if at any point in time you have a question, please just shout it out and I'll be glad to answer. Ms.
We have
Benson,
one about the release forms if they're
Okay.
electronic. I know during COVID they were doing electronic release forms, but I'm
They
not
do
sure
have-
if they're still on the site.
There is still a way to digitally do the release forms. Personally, I have never dealt with that, so I don't really kind of want to speak too much to that. I do know, I'll let someone else in. I do know that there is a way to do it. It is on the National Board website. I just have never done that and gone through that. I sent home all of my forms at the very beginning of the year. If you have to bribe them, you know, with candy or whatnot to bring them back, do so. You know, I think it's important to note that just because if someone sends back no, or if someone doesn't send back in, you know, a form, that doesn't automatically count you out for, you know, recording that class. You may choose to give that student the iPad or whatever, you know, camera that you have, and, you know, they may walk around and film for you. That's not an opportunity for you to put that student in the hallway and just say, hey, you didn't bring your form back. You don't get to learn today. That's not what we're going to do. That would obviously not be accomplished teaching. So, you know, and another suggestion that I have is go ahead and start recording as early as possible. And we'll get to some of that stuff here in the slideshow. I'm probably getting a little ahead of myself. Any other questions there? Ms. Benson? We're good to go. All right. Sorry, I apologize. So where are your standards? Your standards are located right where I just showed you under applicable standards. All right. These standards right here are for, if I'm not mistaken, these are for your generalist. They are. This is for generalist. This is what the standards that component 3 covers for that specific content area. It covers knowledge of students, respect for diversity, establishing an environment for learning, knowledge of content and curriculum, It also covers instructional decision-making and reflective practice. Not everybody's standards are the same. So you have to make sure that you're looking at your content-specific standards. So I like component 3. It was probably my second favorite one to do. It was the one that I did score the highest on though. I did score 3.75 on it. But it's really the ability for you to showcase your classroom. You get to showcase your teaching practice. You get to showcase your learning environment, because in my personal opinion, this is the only component in which they get that snapshot into your classroom. You know, they kind of do through 4 and they kind of do through 2, but they really get to, we'll let this person in. They really get to sit down and look at your classroom through your videos, which is amazing. You're going to showcase your instructional planning. I know probably everybody in here has heard the phrase begin with the end in mind, right? I kind of really never knew how that, I always thought it was a great saying, and yes, we should be doing it as educators, but until national boards, I never really kind of put the 2 and the 2 together, that I can also use that in my national boards as well. You know, you're going to also showcase your instructional practice, your instruction, student engagement, learning environment, analysis, and reflection on your teaching. I want you guys to kind of take notice of how many times we go through here and it says what you must do in the instructions, and it says student engagement a lot throughout what we are trying to show you here today. But like we said, this is a showcase. It's not a dog and pony show, but this is where we kind of get to show off who we are as an educator. We get to show off the things that we are able to do. And not everything is about being perfect. All right. It's about showing student growth, and we'll get into that. So portfolio instructions for your specific content area, component 3. This is what do I need to do? This is located, let me move everybody right here on my Zoom screen. This is located about page 3 on everybody's content specific instruction. You are to identify 2 lessons from different instructional units. So when I have that person that calls me in April and says, hey, I've only got 1 unit left in the year, can I do 2 lessons out of it? What is the answer? It is no. It has to be from different instructional units. And while I'm here, let me go ahead and say this. I believe that everything needs to be different from, you don't need to use something from component 2 and component 3 and component 3 and component 4. Everything needs to be different, because as a whole, you are trying to show as much depth, which kind of gets into the next thing. You're trying to show as much depth and as much breadth of content as possible. You want to show that without a shadow of a doubt, you are an accomplished teacher, not like a one-trick pony that can only do one or a couple things there. Together, the 2 lessons must demonstrate a breadth of content. All right. And then they also have to be different instructional formats. So that person that calls me in April also says, hey, can I do 2 whole group instructions? The answer to that is no, you may not. All right. They have to be different instructional formats, and whole group or large group instruction look different, whether that's in elementary or whether that is in the high school setting. In the high school setting, we can address, secondary, because middle school falls into that as well. We can address a whole group, but they can be in small groups working. Whereas kind of in elementary, Sonny did a great job the other day of explaining it in our in-person meetings that we had, is, just putting kids at a table, 4 to a table doesn't necessarily make it a small group when it comes to elementary, because they may already be there. That may be their seat that they always have. And then not only does it need to be in different instructional formats, but it also needs to be, different teaching strategies. What kind of strategies are we using? Digital escape rooms? Are we using, kind of like the chunking stuff, jigsaws? Are we using, Socratic seminars, those type of things? One thing that a lot of people will get caught up in, I can just do a large group and a small group, large group and a small group. Don't count out one-on-one as well. One-on-one can be extremely powerful and effective. You can bring up one student to your desk, three different times. You can teach one student for 15 minutes. Everything kind of depends different, everything kind of is different depending on your certificate area, and you need to make sure that you look into that. But don't count out one-on-one instruction, especially for those like the administrator or the specialist or the coach, that person that is trying to borrow the classroom to do this in. One-on-one instruction could be way more impactful and way more powerful than large group or whole group, because you're learning the needs of one student instead of learning the needs of 15, 16 students. So in this entry, it's going to talk about some other things that you need to do. Provide an overview of the entire entry. And this right here comes directly from content-specific instructions. Provide an overview of your entire entry with rationales for including the 2 videos to illustrate your instruction of curriculum content. Now, you can kind of insert your own content area after that. So you need to also be able to tell national boards why you included these 2 videos. There's a wide range of reasons why you may choose to include 2 videos. One, because it shows a large amount of student growth, could show a big student impact. It could show, things that you do well in your classroom. You're also going to describe your learning goals and demonstrate instructional planning appropriate to the students, the content, the context for 2 lessons. From here, it says it again, different instructional units. Now it said it twice. Please, let's make sure that these are from different instructional units. I apologize, I'm sorry. And then here we go. It continues on to tell us again to show at least 2 different instructional formats to demonstrate at least 2 different teaching strategies that you use to help students meet the learning goals. So without students meeting learning goals and without showing student growth, it's not really what we would call accomplished teaching. So you've got to make sure that they are meeting goals and that they are and that you're getting student growth. All right. So some of you may be trying to figure out, what, how do I select a class for each video? You can actually, you've got to turn in 2 videos, 3 for some certificate areas. You do not have to use the same class. You can choose different classes. You can have different subjects. So let's say we're a math person and we teach geometry and pre-calculus. You can do 1 geometry, you can do 1 pre-calculus. You can use your 2nd period and your 3rd period geometry. You may choose to use your above videos be your 2nd period career prep class. Whatever you want to do, you are able to do it there. It tells us that we can do that in the instructions and in the directions. But it must be a rostered class that meets during the school day and the school year. And there are some exceptions to that. I believe counseling and library media may be some exceptions to that. what it's trying to prevent us from doing there is, just dragging in 5 kids, having them go through a lesson again, them being the top 5 kids in a class, and we teach those. That's not what they want to see. They don't want to see student, achievement. They don't want to see, the students do well. They want to see student growth. Now, obviously, they want to see the other things, but not as much as they want to see the growth in that student. Like we said earlier, students must be within the stated age range of your certificate instructions, at least 51% of the class. We're going to call that the 51% rule. Must fall within that area. And then this really is a focus on your practice and your ability to facilitate student learning, not student achievement. I believe in my heart of hearts, the national boards does not want to see a video of you standing at the board teaching for 15 minutes, working a math problem for 15 minutes. I don't believe that. I believe that they want to see student learning in a way that is student-centered, not teacher-centered. And I'll get into that here in a minute. And I believe that they want to see and hear more from the students maybe than they even want to hear from us. Now, obviously, they have to hear from us, but I believe that they want to see more of what the students have learned. So this is kind of going to get now page 3, page 4 into what you actually have to submit. There is one introduction to entry form, and we'll kind of cover all of that stuff here in a minute. So you've got an introduction to entry form. You've got an instructional context sheet. Yes, it is very, very similar to components 2 and 4 when it comes to that instructional context sheet. You're going to feel like you're being redundant from time to time from the context sheet into your writing about planning, and from that sheet into your written commentary. And that is perfectly normal for you to feel that way, because if you look at the level 4 rubric, they want consistency in what you're stating: clear, concise, and consistent evidence. Consistency, having it in your forms, having it in your written commentary is extremely powerful. You're going to have 2 videos, 3 for some certificate areas, but for the most part, they are 2 videos. Those videos must be 500 megabytes or smaller, and no more than 15 minutes. Now, we say no more than 15 minutes, but I would not turn in, and it says 10 to 15 actually. I would not turn in anything less than 12. That's what we've been told. But my personal opinion is if you get 15 minutes, you better use 14 minutes, 59 seconds. I better go all the way up there to the last little bit. You're getting to showcase your classroom. Why not use it? So, the 4th thing that we include in this is our instructional planning form, our materials for each video. And we also combine into a PDF with this, our writing about planning. Those prompts are on about page 6, as well as the instructional materials that you're going to choose to use. And then the very last thing for each video is going to be a written commentary. I promise you this sounds a lot like 4, and that there's all these forms and all these different things that we've got to do. It is not nearly as bad as 4. As a matter of fact, I feel like this is one of the easier ones to turn in, if there is such a thing with national boards. Do we have any questions so far, Ms. Benson?
There is one
Or is there
question
anything that
about
you
the
would like to add?
instructional units.
Okay.
Esmeralda's wanting to know 2 instructional units. Can one be responding to text and the other be finding the main ideal and supporting details, but using the same passage?
Okay. I am not a elementary person, even though I do have my elementary degree. And that may be more English language arts questions. Steph would be able to answer that one a little bit more clearly if she was here. I do
I
think that
know
those
with,
I do think that those
with
are,
the generalists for elementary, for early childhood, we were specific with one unit had to be science, social studies, or math. We had to pick one of or two out of those three choices.
right.
So that way it was a different unit.
Yeah, I will refer you to your content specific instructions with that one. But to me, it seems like you can make that into two different units. That's just kind of the way that I feel. But at the same time, I don't want to tell you that, what you're doing is right and it be wrong, or me tell you that what you're doing is wrong and it end up being right. So I'll refer you to your content specific instructions. And if you want to tell me kind of, what certificate area that you are in, I will be more than happy to get you in touch with someone that can answer that question for you. All right, so this right here is what your intro to entry form looks like, or introduction to entry form. I do want to point out the directions at the top of this page. Following directions is extremely important. We obviously expect for our students to follow directions in our classrooms. Why would it be any different for national boards, right? So on this intro to entry form, it is supposed to be no more than one single spaced page in Arial 11-point font. Please make sure that you are not typing in 12 font Times New Romans. All right. Please, please, please look at the directions, read the instructions, and do exactly what it says. I hope by now, many of you have your candidate ID number. We're going to put that candidate ID number right here in between the two brackets. We are not going to delete those brackets. We're going to insert it in between those. And then we're going to provide a brief overview of the entry. We are also going to answer questions 2 and 3 there. And if I'm not mistaken, it goes down to question 6 on this form. But one of the things that I wanted to point out to you in this is you're going to describe the focus of video 1 and your rationale for why you included it in the video. This is your reason why you are including it. You are not going to, at this point, describe everything that happens in your video. I have been mentoring people and have seen where they chose to do that. That is not what they are looking for here. They are looking for the reason why you included this video. You may have included this video because it shows that you are an accomplished teacher along the lines of digital escape rooms. You may say that it shows student growth. There are all kinds of different reasons or rationales for why you could include a video within your portfolio. Here's a hint. You can wait and do this last, all right? So let's think about this. Why would you, and this goes for questions 2 and 3 right here, but you may not know why you're wanting to include this until after you have recorded the video, after you have watched your video back, after you have analyzed your video. Then you may decide, hey, I think this would be great, and this is why. So go ahead and as soon as you can start videoing in your classroom, get the students used to it. So it doesn't matter if you've got, in my opinion, if you've got kindergarten kids, first grade kids, middle school kids, or high school age kids. When that camera comes on for the first time, for the very first time, those kids are going to act different one way or another. They may choose to act out. They may choose just to, kind of be shy because they don't want to be heard or seen on camera. There are all kinds of different reactions that they're going to have to that camera. But over time, those reactions to that camera being on will slowly go away. So my personal opinion is go ahead and start videoing a variety of your classes as early as you possibly can. This is your instructional context form. Once again, this is very similar to what you get in 2 and in 4. You're going to briefly describe your school or your program. And what you're going to talk about here is what's in the parentheses. Single grade, departmentalized, interdisciplinary teams. From what we tell the people that we mentor, we usually try to keep this one right here very brief, because I do believe that 6 is a little bit more impactful and a little bit more powerful when it comes to what you want your assessors to see. We're going to briefly identify the grades that we teach. If we teach grades 9 through 12, we can just put a 9-12. If we teach fourth grade, we can just put a 4. You don't have to spell it out or any of that. Age levels, you're going to put your age ranges there. Excuse me. We're also going to include the number of students that we teach daily, average number of students in each class, and the courses in which we teach. You've got a place there for you to describe your social and physical context, but right there in parentheses, what is it telling you to talk about here? Your technology, the scheduling of your classes. All right, are we on a 7-period class day? Are we, blocked? Do we have an A-day, B-day? Have you just moved to an 8-period day? All of those things are, very important to add there. Room allocation, is it owned or is it a shared space? I do believe that's very important for your library media specialist, your counselors, those type, certificate areas. Identify the number, ages, and grades of students in the class featured in the video. So 5 right there, we're only talking about the class in the video. Number of students taught daily in 2 is going to be a different number. And then there at the bottom, number 6, this is where we're going to talk about the relevant characteristics. Now, please keep in mind that it says relevant characteristics. If it is not relevant, please do not put it in there. This is your ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, linguistic diversities, social behavior, attention spans, sensory needs, special needs in the classroom. This can even be the overall personality of the class. Now, one thing that I will say is when we're filling these out, I saw some people put the personality of the class was extremely talkative. Now, extremely talkative and energetic can be the exact same thing. One sounds way better than the other one. Energetic sounds way better than if I'm saying this class was extremely talkative. We have any questions from here, Ms. Benson? Anybody else added anything into the chat?
Let's see, there's one question. Teachers who are not departmentalized, will the students taught and average in each class just stay the same? Like if you teach 18 students, then your average is 18 students.
Yes. So, for elementary, that will be different. I'm so secondary minded that it does take a little bit for me to get into the elementary numbers, but yes, I did misspeak when it came to that. Videos are your way to showcase the climate in your classroom. We hope that everybody's climate is obviously warm and inviting. You're going to be asked to show where you can provide how you provide a safe, fair, and equitable classroom. And notice that is an and in there, not an or. So they provide evidence and consistency for what the assessor reads in your commentary. Start early. Like I've said now multiple times, start early. Most of the written commentary cannot be written until you have your videos. And one of the things that I will suggest when you're writing your written commentary, get your best 15 minutes of your video and then write down everything that happens in it with a timestamp. Turn the sound on, write down everything that happens in it with a timestamp, turn around, watch it with the sound off for nonverbal cues. There may be someone that gets the correct answer. They do a little dance in your class. So now you know that they feel comfortable, they feel safe in your classroom. to be able to do that when they get an answer correctly. So watch for nonverbal cues just as much as you do verbal cues that can show student learning, student impact. Film multiple videos and film frequently. We've talked about that already. You have up to 2 allowable edits in your videos. My suggestion is do not edit your video. And you'll understand why when we get to those allowable edits. Now, when you video, you're not going to just video 15 minutes and at the end of 15 minutes, go cut it off. Let's say you're in a secondary classroom and that class period is an hour long. You're going to video the entire hour, because what you trim from the beginning and what you trim from the end is not considered an edit. That's just trimming your videos down to 15 minutes. What they consider an edit is when your video starts playing, it drops off and then it picks back up. That is an edit, not trimming it from the beginning and not trimming it from the end to get those 15 minutes. So you will video lessons from different formats. Here we are, we're telling you again, small group, whole group, one-on-one, partners, make sure that you have different formats. Excuse me, and different instructional strategies. Recording your videos. This is on about page 7 or 8 in your directions. Follow the guidelines for each of your 2 video recordings. The videos must feature, once again, different lessons and units of instruction. Each video must be made during a single class period. So this means that you may not video from the secondary world, first period into second period. You may not video, let's go elementary world. You may not video your reading lesson for one day and then pick back up with that reading lesson the next day. It's got to be during a single class period. The lessons featured in the video must be independent of one another and stand alone as evidence of your teaching practice. And then those videos can be made, you can use the same class of students, or you may choose to use a different class of students. So the video should show as much of the class as possible, but it is acceptable to focus on a particular student while he or she is talking. This is where I say the national boards does not necessarily want to see us stand up in front of a chalkboard or stand up in front of a projector screen and just lecture. All right, they want to see student engagement right there. They're saying it is acceptable to focus on a particular student. Use a camera angle that includes as many faces of the students as possible. So that means that we are not going to put that camera in the back of the classroom, only see the backs of students' heads, and then us up at the board teaching. That is not what they want. You and your students must be seen and heard in both videos. So once again, you and your students must be seen and heard in both videos. Do you have to stay in that video the entire time? Absolutely not. You do not have to. You can move in and out through it or whatnot, and that will be fine. But you're there to hopefully facilitate student learning. It's important for your assessor to be able to see and hear you and your students together. Your students interacting with one another, the students' reactions to what you are doing, and their engagement in learning. Your portfolio component will not be scored if you fail to meet the requirements. You will get a no score if you are not in that video. You will get a no score if you and your students are not heard in that video. So please make sure that you follow the directions and the instructions and do what you're told to do. If you do not receive permission to include a student or an adult in a video, you must ensure that he or she is out of the camera's range and they cannot be heard. But please do not stick them out in the hall and just say, yeah, you didn't bring your form back, or your parents told me no, so you don't get to learn. That's unethical. Scan the environment in which you plan to record your videos to avoid recording visual cues that reveals names, the school and the facility name, or the location. All right. So we're taught, and I hope people have been teaching you this week, that we want to take out all bias that we possibly can out of the hands of the assessor. So, you know, we're not going to say, hello, my name is Brad Lett and I'm from Guntersville, Alabama. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what they're doing. That can have, you know, there can be all kinds of bias when it comes to just the state of Alabama.
I have a question.
Yes.
Let's say that I'm doing a Socratic seminar and a student responds to another student and he says, well, Jeff, I see what you're coming from. However, I feel, so do we tell them before the video, do not use each other's names?
First names are absolutely fine. And
Okay.
here's the thing. So, and this is, I was going to try to get into this, and I'm glad that you said that. So in my heart of hearts, I don't believe that National Board wants us to change what we do in our classroom to fit their needs, nor should we change what National Boards wants for our students. In my video, one of the students said, Coach Lett, and I submitted it anyway, because how else are they supposed to address me? Are they supposed to address me as Brad for that day? I mean, that wouldn't be right. So, you know, and then I can't tell my kids, who am I to tell kids that are of a disadvantaged background that the only warm thing that they have to wear is a sweatshirt that says Alabama or Auburn across the front of it. And so, you know, obviously that identifies where we're from, but I can't go to my kids and tell them, hey, you can't wear that today. So I think they are extremely reasonable when it comes to that. You're supposed to try to avoid it, but obviously that can't be done. Now, when you're submitting your student work samples, when you're submitting student work, anything like that, yes, you have to black out the last name. In the written commentary, you can write their first names. I think Dr. Shields has said it best before. She included the students. I was writing it as student A, student B in my component too. And, you know, it was suggested to me to write their first names because it makes it so much more personal, right? You care so much more about Johnny and Susie than you do student A and student B. You know, so don't freak out if somebody says, you know, hey, Matt, will you pass me that pencil? Or, hey, you know, Miss Thompson, that was a great, you know, lesson. You know, you can't get caught up in all of that too much. We want to try to avoid it, but at the same time, we know that it's not always going to happen. The one thing you can do is try to take down like the sign that says, well, you know, Guntersville High School. You can try taking down signs, you know, that have your name on it, those type things. But, you know, you can't control what people say and all that in your classroom. And if you try to get the perfect video, you're going to video 180 different days because you're never going to get the perfect video. That's almost impossible to do. You're going to have someone, your classroom is going to be interrupted from time to time from a call from the office. And they're going to say, Coach Lett, can you send so-and-so to the office? Those things happen, and it's part of everyday life as a teacher. And it's an opportunity for you to write about it in your written commentary of how you handled it. So you can take negatives like that and you can turn it into a positive. If you're using your phone to record, the one thing that I will suggest is that you put that thing in airplane mode. Because my wife, Steph, she thought she had the perfect video and it was great. And her oldest son had called her that day. And during the lesson, she on her watch clicks, you know, the red button to end the call. She goes about teaching the lesson. And then she realized that the phone cut off recording when the phone call was coming in. So she actually did not get the lesson on video. So make sure if you're using your cell phone, or I would even say an iPad where messages come through, please make sure that you are, excuse me, please make sure that you are putting those in airplane mode. And then once again, the instruction tells us down there at the bottom, contents of the two videos combined must represent different instructional formats and different teaching strategies. Ms. Benson, do we have any questions in the chat or anything?
Yeah, we have a question in the chat. I'm not quite sure what she's asking Vanessa Sims. She's asking about the geometry classes all day. Which
Yes,
class
ma'am.
are?
Yes, I had to, I know he was talking and I stepped away for about 2 seconds when he was saying, when you were mentioning about the classes that you can't use your first and second period.
Right. You wouldn't want to use a video that started in first period and then shows the transition time between classes and then picks up in the second period. But if you wanted your first video to be first period and you wanted your second video to be about second period, that's 100% fine.
And I'd like to, sorry, go ahead, Vanessa.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ms. Benson.
I'd like to suggest too, especially those of you who have the younger children, like I have pre-K, and I knew what it would be like doing a video with my pre-K. So if you have the younger classes or just knowing the nature of your classes, start videotaping way before you want to record your lessons. I use my iPad for to do small group, but I started using the iPad to record small group 2 weeks before I did the actual lessons. By the end of that second week, they were so used to that iPad, they were not reacting to it. For my other lesson was a whole group. I had borrowed the district swivel setup and used my phone. I gave the kids the little swivel clicker for a week and turned it on every time I was teaching. And they played with that till after a while, they were so used to it, they did not pay attention when the video camera or the phone would move in that. So get your kids used to videotaping, and it'll make your life a lot easier when you actually do the recording.
I agree 100% with you. For those of you that don't know what a swivel is, it's a great invention. The swivel, and I don't have one right around me. We showed everybody that was in this room yesterday with us. We showed them what one looks like. So it's like a little box that you can set a phone or an iPad in, and then you have a little marker that you can wear around the lanyard. You can hold it, you can do whatever you want to do, and then the swivel will turn and it will pan to and away from you, so that way it will capture where you're going, what you're doing at all times. It's really kind of neat. I do have a couple of suggestions though. Don't wear loud jewelry if you wear it around your neck and you wear a couple other necklaces that day, because all it'll be able to hear is just kind of the jangling of the necklaces. And don't stick it in your pocket, because all you'll hear is your pants moving when you walk back and forth. I actually made that mistake, but was I still able to use the video?
And put up signs, unplug your classroom phone, put someone outside the hallway. I videotaped one lesson and I put up the sign, then my phone started ringing and I ignored it. It went off, rang again. I finally, stopped, had the kids keep working, and I answered it. And the question was, how much longer are you going to be videotaping? So the next day when I recorded, one of my mentors at the school, she literally sat by my door and told everybody to go away.
Good deal. So, also when you're trying to select a lesson for what to submit for component 3, you are going to want to make sure that you are showing that you have established a safe, fair, equitable, and challenging environment. That's not an or, that's an and. You need to be able to show all 4 of those things in your video. It's supposed to be able to promote active student engagement. Right there, that's where I get the don't stand at your desk or don't stand up in front of the class and lecture constantly. I get that because it is saying that promotes active student engagement. I do believe that you can get student engagement from a lecture. I do believe that but I believe it's kind of passive, not active. So in the activities, in the substance and the concepts relevant to, and then this one was obviously middle childhood curriculum. You can insert your own certificate area there, but you need to try to create a student-centered learning environment. Once again, not all about the teacher. And then it needs to be based off of trust and mutual respect. And then equip students with the skills of collaboration. Start from day one, working on your kids on working in a group setting or some kind of collaboration. Nowadays, we do, kids don't want to talk on the phone even nowadays. They just want to text everybody. So you may have to teach them how to communicate. That's not through a device, even though you may be able to figure a way to use a device for your to add some educational value there. But they also need to have the ability to ask thoughtful questions and respond respectfully to others. So video editing. Here is why I say there is 0 reason for you to edit your videos. There's only 3 allowable edits, and that is if you are moving a whole class to a different physical instructional setting, like a lab, a gymnasium, or to be moving outdoors, just start your class there. Just start it there. There's no reason to cut it off and then, to tell them what you're going to be doing today and then cut it off and then walk there. Just walk there and then tell them what you're going to be doing in there that day. Responding to safety drills. Now, I don't think we're supposed to know when our safety drills are coming. They always tell us when they are. So just schedule your videoing around those safety drills. And then changing out the battery in a video camera. I don't know if anybody even has a battery in the video cameras anymore. I think they're all just built in internally and you just plug it in. So just kind of a good rule of thumb there is do not edit your videos. Trim it from the beginning, trim it from the end, don't edit. Do we have any other questions in the chat for right now? I don't believe so. I don't think it's gone up from 10 since I've been talking. So tips for selecting a video. Know the standards. Know your standards backwards and forwards. We've talked about that. Knowledge of student is king. That is the number one, standard, in my opinion, for a reason. Read the written commentary questions. Like we've told you, begin with the end in mind. If they're already going to ask you if they're going to give you the questions that you're going to have to answer in the written commentary already, we should be able to tailor make a lesson that will provide those answers. I mean, in my opinion, that's accomplished teaching right there. If you aren't already doing it, begin including multiple examples of accomplished teaching in every lesson. And then video the entire lesson, watch it, select the segment that shows the most evidence of accomplished teaching, watch it with the sound on, watch it with the sound off, and timestamp it like we talked about. Quick check-in. How are y'all doing? Is there anybody that's ready to run for the hills? Good deal. All right. So instructional planning form and materials. This right here is what your instructional planning form will look like. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the writing about planning. And then where I'm actually going to show you some samples of instructional materials. These are samples of instructional materials. These are not anything that's been submitted to national boards. I don't want anybody to think that. These actually even go back away. I am not losing my teaching license, and I am not, giving up my national board certification. These are just instructional materials. These are not things that have been submitted. So this form actually has 3 questions on it. It's going to want you to indicate your unit of instruction. If your unit of instruction is the Pythagorean theorem, just simply put Pythagorean theorem. That's all that it has to be. You don't have to get extremely elaborate with it. You don't have to put solving the world's problems to the Pythagorean theorem. I mean, it is, you just write out, boom, Pythagorean theorem, in, end of story, done. And then you're going to indicate your instructional goals for the unit. You may have more instructional goals for the unit, but question 3 is going to ask you, what are your instructional goals for the video? My suggestion is 3 or less. Because if you have 7, 8, 9 goals for what you wanted your students to accomplish in that video, you're going to have to prove to what degree they accomplished 7, 8, 9 goals. 3 or less. Less is more. More than 1, obviously. 2, we're kind of getting iffy. I think 3 is kind of the sweet spot. That's the good. That's the good number. So here's your writing
Question, sorry.
Yeah, shoot it. No, you're good.
On the indicate instructional goals for the unit, so list all of the goals, even if we are not addressing those in the video?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because it lets you know, it lets them know that you're thinking about planning before and afterwards. So here's my instructional planning, some of the materials that go with this. And let me go back to this slide. This form is meant to be a standalone right here form. We're not going to try to add anything at the end of this form. What we're going to do is we're going to take this and everything has to be submitted as a PDF. You used to have the ability to submit things as a doc file, but now everything is submitted as a PDF. And from my brain, what I had to do was I had to take this instructional planning form, and then behind it, I had to add in my 2 pages of writing about planning. And then behind it, I had to add in my 3 pages of materials that I was allowed to use. I set them in my scanner, I hit scan, and they went through one after another. So that way I could see the one PDF that they made. Don't try to add stuff like space and enter down until you get onto the next page and then type and write and read about, all of this. Don't do that. Just create a new document. This is meant to be standalone. All right. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're writing about planning. This is no more than 2 double-spaced pages for each video using 11-point Arial font. Here's one of the biggest tips and one of the biggest, hints, whatever you want to call it, things that I can show you. The assessors, when they're reading through this, they've obviously got the questions there, and there's nothing that says that you have to answer these questions in order. It does say that you have to answer these questions. So my personal opinion, and I got corrected yesterday when I said, take everything you learned about English and throw it out the window. Take everything that you learned about formatting an English paper and throw it out the window. You're still going to have to use complete sentences, but no paragraphs, no indentions. You literally start typing. And so when you're literally starting to type, as you go down through there, you're going to flip these questions into a statement so that the assessor knows, hey, I am ready to answer this question. Bold the first few letters of that statement and then answer. So the question, I think this is the 4th one down here. It says, how do the instructional goals for this particular lesson fit into your long-term goals and plans? You can say, the instructional goals for this lesson fit into my long-term goals and plans by ... answer. bold my instructional goals for this particular lesson. That's what we did. That's what we've seen. So much people have so much success out of. That's what we teach everyone that we mentor to do. That way, even when we go through and we're reading people's stuff and we're giving them feedback, you know, we're able to bounce from question to question. Did you answer? And then when you are answering these questions, it is not enough for you to say that you do it. You've got to show and you've got to tell me how that you do it. And if you can, now this is getting into the written commentary, but if in the written commentary, you can prove it with a timestamp, even better. But this writing about planning, this is what you're writing about, all your planning that went into those lessons. You're going to answer these questions right here. And you're going, like I said, you're going to take the question, flip it into a statement, bold the first couple words of it. Your instructional materials. You want to select materials that will help an assessor understand the lesson in the video recording. They don't have to be seen in the video. And that being said, I'll ask y'all this question. Do you see more student impact and do you see more student growth if you have materials that are blank or if you have materials that a student has filled out? We know that we see way more with the ones that students have filled out. So if you're asking me, which one would you rather turn in my opinion, it would be that one. And if you've got the room to turn that in twice, one with feedback on it and where they have corrected something and they have shown that growth, that's even more powerful. All right. But if nothing else, I mean, if it were me, I would be turning in student materials that, you know, have been completed and have feedback for the student only. These could be lesson plans. Now, I mean, I do lesson plans, but, you know, I haven't had to turn in a lesson. I know some of y'all are thinking, what in the world? But I haven't had to turn in a lesson plan in like, you know, 3-4 years. You know, there was a point in time where we were doing them on websites and stuff. But, you know, my lesson plans may not be something that I would want to turn in. Their handouts. So maybe they're doing a graphic organizer. Maybe they're answering some questions in a group setting, but handouts are perfectly acceptable. Pictures speak 1,000 words when it comes to this stuff. If you've got pictures of your students actually completing what they're supposed to be doing, and that is really, really, really big in the elementary world. Slideshow, if you've got a PowerPoint that can kind of convert into, you know, to a material, that would be great. Graphic organizers like we talked about, task cards, any of that stuff would be outstanding. So on your instructional materials, you get 3 pages of materials for each video. Choose wisely, choose very carefully. I just kind of told you what I thought. These are another window into your classroom that will allow the assessor to see your skill, your pedagogical knowledge, and it'll help you to see your students learning. So here are some examples. Like I said before, these are not things that have been submitted through national boards. I think there's even some dates for like 2013. But right here, you can see here's a picture, elementary world here. Students collected soil samples around campus and sorted components, plates, you know, where they labeled different components of things. Here's where students recorded findings on chart labeled soil components. Here's an example of maybe a handout. Here's where you can obviously see team members, group members, some names and stuff have been blocked out right there to protect students. But here's just a material where something's been turned in for math. And then over here, we've got another generalist where we're talking about becoming or being a geologist. Like I said, first names are fine on things. And let's make sure that we black out the last names of stuff. One thing that I kind of believe in my heart of hearts when it comes to national boards is that they don't want to see multiple choice tests. They want to see maybe where students were able to, be creative in order to achieve the answer that they needed to get. I understand math is kind of in a world of its own where, the answer, you can't have multiple answers for solving a two-step equation. There is only one answer, but maybe are they allowed some freedom of how to answer those questions? I don't know. I'm not a math teacher, so I can't really speak to that. But I do think that anything that you can make open-ended and anything that you can make to where it encourages student choice, where it encourages student learning in a way to where it reaches their multiple intelligence, whether that be audio, whether that be visual, kinesthetic, anything like that. And I know we're kind of getting into a little differentiation here, but I think that that's extremely powerful and it really shows accomplished teaching. Just kind of have some open-ended materials and things. Here are exit slips, or maybe, that you may hand the teacher on the way out the door that day. There's like a KWL chart that's just got different words there for it. And then here's like a little data table that somebody else filled out. Pictures. Now, when it comes to pictures, you can't put 90 on a page. You've got to make sure that you keep that to where they can see what's going on and refer to your individual instructions, because it may tell you how many pictures you are allowed to put on a page. 6 is a good number. 4 would also be a good number. There used to be a website called Jing, J-I-N-G. The name of that has changed, but if you will still Google Jing, it will help you to make something like this look even better. It will, you've got the little snippet tools where you can do different things with it, and it will make it look a little bit cleaner than what you're seeing there on the left. Obviously, here's something that had to have been annotated. That's very good for English people to see. Grading rubrics. If you submit a grading rubric, that is also an excellent form of materials. Maybe you did personal business letters. All right, turning in some samples or examples of those that students have completed. Those can be extremely impactful as well. And then we get into all right, so before I get into the written commentary, are there any more questions?
Sorry, me again. Yes. So for each video, we need the introduction to entry form, a new instructional context sheet, and a new instructional planning form.
Yes. And
Okay.
I'll show you that. There's a submission at a glance page. It's usually on about page 13. I'll show you all that here in a minute. But yes, absolutely. It is, that's one for each. The only thing that you have one of in this is that very first form, the intro to you. All right. So your written commentary, this is 4 pages for each video. And once again, you are going to write about what you have in your 15 minutes by answering these questions. How did you establish a safe, fair, equitable, and challenging learning environment for all students? You may choose to split that one into 4 different bolds or 4 different statements with it being bold. You may say, I established a safe environment when at 14 minutes and 35 seconds, you can see Sarah dancing because she got a question correct. I know because I know Sarah has difficulty with being shy. When she dances like this, it lets me know that she feels safe enough in my class to, act in this manner. It does not have to be all obviously student achievement oriented when it comes to the safe, the fair, the equitable, and the challenging. But obviously more academic is more plus. Like we said again, on all of these, you're going to flip the question into a statement, bold the first few words of it, answer it. And when you answer it, don't just say that you do it. Show me, give me examples, and timestamp. It's acceptable to timestamp by saying at 14 minutes and 35 seconds. And then it's acceptable at the end of it to just put the parentheses 14:35. Either way. Here are some more written commentary prompts. The one that I kind of want to go over here is when it says, what would you do differently? If anything, they need to take out the if anything, and it needs to say, what would you do differently if you were to teach this particular lesson again? As an educator, as a coach of two sports, I don't believe kind of like in the old perfect lesson, the perfect game, that type of stuff. There is always something that you can do differently to improve. So the one thing that I would not say here though, is I would not say I would give them more time to complete the project. You may give more time for certain pieces of it, but don't just say more time. Maybe it's more wait time. Maybe it's something of that nature, but I would not look at that as, just the ability to just say more time and that's it. I obviously would not say I would not do anything different because the lesson was amazing and great. But at the same time, don't blow yourself up and don't rake yourself over the coals over this. Two, three things max right there. You're not looking, we don't need, an extra, whole page on things that you did wrong in the lesson. And it may not be that you've done anything wrong in the lesson. It may just be that I've thought of a more effective and efficient way to do it. So here's your submission at a glance, but I actually want to go into a new one because that one is outdated. See if I can open up a zip file here. Okay. See what happens. Hold our breath. All right, my IT department has not blocked it. Submission at a glance. Here we go. So you will have one intro to entry form, no more than one page right here, and then it will give us some hints and some tips of what we need to do with that stuff over here. And then it says supported file, PDF. That's all that's supported now. PDF. So you've got one instructional context sheet. But if you look over here, it says one page for each video, 2 total pages. So you have one intro to entry for the entire component. You have 2 instructional context sheets. Those instructional context sheets, if you use the same class, they may look exactly the same. If you're using different classes, they could be different. And then you've got your videos. You have 2 of those. The only file supported anymore is MP4, and you have to get that under 500 megabytes. A great software program to download would be called Handbrake. If you download Handbrake, it will help compress your files into down into that 500 megabyte range. But your runtime, it says 10 to 15 minutes each. Let's be turning in videos that are 15 minutes because we want to showcase as much as we possibly can. Instructional planning form and materials. We've got 2, one for each video right there. And then we've got our written commentary, 1 for each video there. This instructional planning and materials form This is the form. It tells me over here, instructional planning form. Then followed directly behind it is the writing about planning, which was the 2 double-spaced pages. And then right behind it was the no more than 3 pages total for my material. So that is 6 pages. In my personal opinion, you take those 6 pages, you run it through a scanner, make it a PDF. Are there any questions?
Yes, what is your opinion about, I know you said you weren't not a math person, but what is your opinion about, and this may be kind of dated, but we used to use something called interactive math notebooks. And basically it was a collection of their work. It's just like a regular composition notebook, but it was,
Right.
it has graphing lines in it.
Yes,
And it
ma'am.
would contain like everything you've done. It would have, it's a collection of everything. It could have, graphic organizers, pictures, it can contain a lot of different things, all their notes. Is that acceptable for, with this, I know it's dated, but is it acceptable?
Materials, absolutely.
Okay.
It would be. You may have to pick a page out, for what you're working on, but absolutely anything that a student writes or anything like that, man, yes, that's absolutely considered materials.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I had a quick question on
Okay.
the, where it says the number of files to submit. So, I'm gonna do it the way you suggested, and you type it and then scan it back in as, so like the introduction to entry form, that's gonna be my PDF file 1. And then the instructional context sheet, both of those will be, a PDF file 2.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not submitting all of these as one big file, but like they have them broken up. That's how.
And it will
that's
be,
what-
broken up just like this in the website.
Oh,
And
perfect.
now, and
Okay.
it's kind of cool because in the website, when you go to submit stuff, it's going to kind of be like columns. Like you can go in there and you can upload something. And then if you decide, I got back to looking through this, I forgot to mark out Susie's last name. You can take it out, mark it out, rescan it back in, and then put it back in. Like, so once it's in there, you can take it out. It's going to ask you a couple of times, are you sure you want to submit before you actually submit? Any other questions?
Nancy wants to know why we're scanning instead of printing to PDF.
You could print to PDF and that's fine. For my brain, I had to see it go through that scanner. That's kind of what I said there. I said, for me and my brain and my visual. Now, if you want to print to PDF, you're more than welcome to do that. You may have to combine those, the PDFs there, that would be fine as well. Absolutely, you could print to PDF.
I think it too, it's just what you're more comfortable with. At the time I submitted, which was 2019, I really didn't know how to do that, print it to PDF. So it was just easier for me to scan.
Yeah, you can print the PDF and that's fine. There's the Kami website that's out there. If you know about that, KAMI, where you can actually take multiple PDF files and you can combine them together into one, and that would be perfectly acceptable too. Just for me, for my brain, for what I wanted to do, and I had to see it go through that scanner and just for me, know that there was no doubt. Yes, Kami is absolutely excellent for splitting and merging. So, all right. I think one of the last things that I wanted to talk about here was the rubric for component 3. Look at your rubrics, look at the verbiage that is used in your rubrics. And those are some of the same verbs that we should be using in our written commentary and our writing about planning. Now, I'm only going to show you 3 and 4, because I believe that, if you start looking at that 2 and that 1 on the rubric there, I think that, we're not trying to hit a 1, we're not trying to hit a 2, we're trying to hit 3s and 4s, obviously. So the difference between level 4 and level 3 is right here. Level 4 says that it provides clear, consistent, and convincing evidence, whereas component 3 just says it provides clear evidence. And it changes some of the stuff that are kind of in the rubric there as well. But definitely pull up that level 4 rubric, look at the verbs that are in there, and try to use as many of those verbs as possible in your written commentary. Really try to make sure that you have established that safe, fair, equitable, and challenging environment, and that you're able to prove that. Make sure that you've created things that are student-centered learning, not teacher-centered learning, and that it equips students with skills that support collaboration. And they're very, very particular about what they want. All right. So see, we can see right here, effectively is component 3, where I think in a level 3, excuse me, let me go back. Let me restate this. I'm seeing the 3 up here. Level 4 is going to say that you effectively equip students with skills. So we might want to use that word effectively instead of in 3, a level 3 rubric, it would say competently. So we don't want to necessarily use competently. We might want to use effectively instead. So those are some of the differences: clear, consistent, and convincing instead of clear. And then here's kind of your ranges and your scores. Like if you score a level 3, that's like a 2.75 to a 3.25. And we suggest that if you make at least a 2.75, that you do not retake that, because you have shown that you have gotten up into the accomplished teaching region. Now, once we see that we're not, everything might be 2.75 and we don't certify, because not only do you have to have at least a 1.75 on everything on component 1, and then 2, 3, and 4 combined, you have to have a 1.75, but that's a level 2. But you also have to reach that ultimate score of 110. And they have, like I said earlier, they've got those calculators out there that you can kind of play around with your scores and stuff on that. All right, so here's the final check-in. Does anybody have any questions whatsoever? Does anybody have anything that they would like to add? Do we have any national board certified teachers in here, or people who have gone through component 3 that even have any tips or tricks or hints or anything like that, that may be able to help anyone else out? Anything that I did not mention? If nobody has any questions, anything like that they have, I'm gonna let y'all kind of fill that out right there at the end. I'd like to thank Ms. Benson for facilitating today. She did an amazing job. She's also going to drop those links and stuff back in right there. I appreciate y'all sitting through this presentation with me today. We at the Alabama A&M In-Service Center, Alabama A&M UAH, we're going to have some sessions coming up that we do. I know they're going to have some here for at the JSU In-Service Center for people who are in Region 6. All in-service centers should be working to provide their very, very best candidate support for you guys. So if you guys are if you guys were needing to find your in-service center, let us know and we'll get you hooked up with who you're supposed to have in your in-service center. I did present today as Brandy Caldwell because we had to use JSU's in-service, their Zoom account to get in to hold longer than 40 minutes. So I will rewind this right here to my screen at the very beginning. So if you guys need to get my contact information or my wife's contact information, y'all are more than welcome to do so.
And don't forget too, I dropped the link to the boot camp bulletin board. And go ahead and post in it, check and see what other people have posted, but post comments, any suggestions that you have, because we even have some sessions we added this year based on last year's suggestions. So we want to make sure that boot camp, keeps meeting everybody's needs. So give us your suggestions of what you need. If you've already done the enrollment for registration for today's component or for today's sessions, you don't have to do it again, but I dropped it in the box also in case you've missed it. And thanks so much, Brad, for everything. And
no problem. If anybody has any questions whatsoever, do not hesitate to email us. We will usually try to respond to you within 48 hours. All right. I hope everyone gets a little break between now and their next session, and y'all all have a wonderful day.
Okay.
May want to stop the recording.
yeah.